The disturbing website Iceberg begins with some unusual and concerning web pages, but the topics will get increasingly darker and more obscure as the video goes on. The outrageous stuff near the end is truly the worst content on the internet, featuring unsettling topics that the average person would never encounter on their own. I don't recommend visiting all of these websites, but with that said, let's begin with the most tame entries at the tip of the iceberg. Scary-maze.com features these blue mazes, and the goal is to move your cursor through each maze successfully. The mazes start out being very easy, but after a while you get to this really narrow part that makes you look really closely and lean in towards your screen. Right as you do so, the website blasts an extremely loud screaming sound and shows an image from the movie The Exorcist. This would normally be a huge jump scare, but don't worry, we've edited this whole video to contain 0 jump scares and 0 sudden shifts in the audio. Anyway, in this viral clip from 2011, we can see a drill sergeant getting jump scared by the site, and this demonstrates how it was very common to prank your friends back in the day by sending them into the scary maze. WorldBirthsAndDeaths.com is a map of the globe that simulates the beginning and ends of people's lives in real time. Whenever someone is born, you can see a little green ping, and every time someone dies, you can see a red ping. In addition to giving you a sense of the population growth in various countries, this website can also serve as a grim reminder of just how fragile and fleeting life can be. Somebody is dying literally every second of every day, and it can be powerful to see it all visualized in this way. Ogrish could definitely be considered a shock site, but back in the early 2000s, it branded itself as an alternative news source using the lines, "Uncover reality" and "Can you handle life?" It specifically focused on showing explicit and extremely graphic content that would never be covered by traditional media, including topics related to war, executions, and uncensored videos of anything that was popular in the news at the time. For example, there was an infamous video of an American contractor in Iraq who died in 2004, and while normal news sites refused to show the video, Ogrish posted the full, uncensored version for everyone to see. Stuff like this drove a lot of traffic to the site for people who wanted to see the raw reality of various news events, but much of the content was just so bad that many of them regretted it later. For obvious reasons, this website was very controversial and it even got banned in several countries, and eventually, after about 6 years, it was shut down. However, the story doesn't end there, because the site started redirecting to LiveLeak, a new video sharing service that was created by some of the same people as Ogrish. With the goal of redefining the media, this new site aimed to continue the mission of Ogrish, just in a slightly different way. It was now focused more on user-submitted videos rather than a curated list of content from the site itself. This was all happening around the same time that YouTube started, so LiveLeak was essentially like YouTube's forbidden cousin who showed up at family events to scare the kids. The branding of the two sites was even remarkably similar at the time, just with the dominant colors flipped around on the logo. Despite the graphic content that it hosted, LiveLeak was taking itself a little bit more seriously than its predecessor, and it exploded in popularity as more people started using cell phones and submitting their own videos to the site. Some particularly notable recordings from over the years include the execution of Saddam Hussein and footage of the Syrian civil war. Even though it was home to a lot of shock content and extreme stuff, it actually managed to survive for a long time, an entire 15 years. It quietly shut down in 2021, with the founder saying, "We felt LiveLeak had achieved all that it could, and it was time for us to try something new and exciting. Sometimes it's just the right time to chart a new path." The internet has become much more regulated these days, and it's not quite the same Wild West that it was back when these sites were started, so it is clear that maintaining the sites was putting significant stress on the owners and their employees. Nowadays, the LiveLeak website redirects to ItemFix, another video site that interestingly bans all types of gore and inappropriate content. Walzr.com is a website documenting YouTube videos with little to no viewership based on the names of the videos. You see, from 2009 to 2012, iPhones had a default button called Share to YouTube, and as a result, millions of people uploaded random videos with the default file names such as img_0001. Essentially, someone built a bot to scrape around 5 million of these forgotten videos, and it placed them on the site, along with the number of views and the date it was uploaded. I didn't expect this site to be anything too special, but I found that watching these videos provides a fascinating insight into the time period and also random people's lives. I encountered tons of different family events, this video of a dog completing an awesome agility course, And finally, Joshua, randomly dropping pasta onto the floor. This entry is fairly obscure because most of the videos have under 10 views and the website itself isn't very popular, but it's definitely one of the least disturbing things that you'll find in this video. Rotten.com was a classic and well-known gore website that started all the way back in 1996. With its apparent goal of presenting the viewer with a truly unpleasant experience, it hosted basically everything that is considered to be disgusting or shocking. For example, on this page from a randomly archived day, the site contains everything from a man full of maggots, someone who got an extremity caught in a meat grinder, and even someone who got struck by lightning. Each one of these had very simple titles such as Maggoted for the one with maggots, but users would still be surprised by the content itself because there were no thumbnails and only very brief descriptions. Due to it pushing the boundaries of what is allowed on the internet, Rotten.com received tons of legal threats over the years, and in 2005, the US government actually forced them to shut down a part of the site that didn't have proper age documentation for people in the videos. There was also a lot of controversy around the alleged posting of deceased celebrities, although many of those photos were eventually proven to be fake. During its most active years, it actually received so many legal threats that they have a whole page dedicated to showing their cease and desist letters from various companies. Honestly though, the fact that there were so many controversies just put Rotten in the news more than it actually hurt them, so it kind of worked like free advertising in their favor. The site peaked in the late 2000s and early 2010s, but it started seeing fewer and fewer updates as the years went on. The whole thing was finally taken down in 2018, but it remains one of the most notorious and disgusting sites from the earlier days of the internet. PlaneCrash.Info.com tragically documents all types of aviation-related disasters in full detail. In addition to information about the number of people aboard, fatalities, and a brief paragraph describing each incident, it also has photos of the events and the aftermath. It even has a rather chilling section called Last Words that has voice recordings, letting you listen to the last sentences ever spoken by the people who crashed. You can also read detailed reports on various accidents and attacks, such as this one where a bomb split a plane in two and sent both pieces spiraling towards the ground. Based on this information, you would probably assume that there were no survivors, but miraculously, a 22-year-old flight attendant who was in the tail section of the plane somehow managed to survive the fall of 33,330 feet, and she now holds the Guinness World Record for highest fall ever survived without a parachute. Although plane crashes are quite rare, statistically speaking, this site is a reminder that they do indeed happen and can certainly be devastating. Hosanna1.com feels like you just clicked onto one of those scam advertisements and you now have 89 banners appearing on your screen. The website is so disorganized that it's hard to even understand what is going on here, and it seems that literally everything is just some sort of advertisement. I mean, look around. It says click here in all caps 7 times on this page alone. It seems that dogs, and specifically the Afghan hound, are the focus of the website, but other than that, you'll find all kinds of strange things, such as this section that says, no lawyer, no problem, and then tells you to visit a site called howtowinincourt.com. Now that is probably the extent of what you will notice on the surface of this site, but I looked into it a lot deeper and it became way more weird, and it linked to other websites that are all owned by the same person. In particular, there are pages dedicated to her so-called freedom and liberty vans that are covered entirely in misinformation. Literally all of the windows are obstructed, so these vans must be pretty hard to drive, and indeed, I did find this interview from one of the many times that she got pulled over and given a ticket for this very glaring issue. Among the various outlandish claims that are featured on the vans, it is very clear that the owner has an unhealthy obsession with smoking. She is also very resistant to any laws that restrict smoking in any way. This resistance might be based on her insane belief that quitting smoking makes you more likely to die, which is probably why her van and website state very loudly that she will never quit. This woman also included a concerning amount of personal information on the site, including her full name, full address, phone number, and other private details that almost certainly should not be here for anyone to see. I went down a very deep rabbit hole on these websites and vehicles, and I'm baffled by how absurd they are, but perhaps one of my favorite parts is that this lady put these insanely awful websites onto her resume. The entire resume is basically dedicated to just boasting about how good she is at making websites. So yeah, the lady who made this page, and this page, and this page thinks that these are high quality and that people should pay her for her web design skills. Oh, and in case the reader of her resume happened to forget, she included this large bold text in all red at the bottom saying, "Note, I refuse to work in a smoke-free workplace." At one point, she even appeared in court, arguing that forcing her to work in a smoke-free environment violated her rights. One judge publicly dismissed her case as, quote, delusional, which is probably the most succinct way to describe her entire website empire. We are now moving on to the surface level of the iceberg with entries that are slightly less known. PointerPointer is a simple yet amusing site that will show you an image of someone pointing precisely at your cursor, no matter where you put it on your screen. As you can see, it just loads for a moment, and then an image appears with a person pointing exactly at the direction of your mouse. All the images definitely look like they were taken in the early 2000s, and it's pretty funny to see all of these random and creative ways that people are pointing to your precise location. One could definitely argue that this is a useless website, but it certainly isn't pointless. RentAHitman.com is a somewhat well-known site that has evolved over the years, and overall it has a very intriguing story. RentAHitman started out as a parody of other websites that were claiming to sell actual hitman services. The difference was that RentAHitman contained a bunch of blatant and humorous clues that made it an obvious joke. For example, it has fake customer reviews, hitmen awards, and if you click on this area, it even takes you directly to the FBI. You might think that this blatant satire would turn away the real criminals, but as it turned out, the owner of the website actually started receiving real inquiries about the services. Some people wanted to pay large sums of money to put out hits on their family members, and others wanted to sign up to be hitmen themselves. Once he realized that these people were serious, the website owner named Bob decided to collaborate with law enforcement to handle these inquiries, and nowadays he is able to regularly send suspicious-looking messages directly to police. Over the years, this has led to many arrests and confessions from people who were stupid enough to actually try to hire a hitman on this website. People kept falling for it, so Bob even added more obvious satire to the site over the years. To give a few more examples, it says this website uses yummy cookies, and RentAHitman is no longer affiliated with P. Diddy, Diners Club, the Las Vegas Raiders, the Illuminati, Joe and Kamala, Jake Paul, the New Jersey Drones, or the Hawk Tuah Girl. It also claims to offer discounts for taking out 3 or more people, or for seniors over the age of 65. The most insane part is that this whole contact page literally admits that it does not do illegal activities, and it tells you that incriminating requests will be forwarded to law enforcement. It's almost hard to believe that the criminals are that stupid and still try to buy hitmen on this website nowadays, and yet there is plenty of proof that they still do, such as this lady, who was recently sent to prison after trying to hire a hitman using $100 in cash and a few diamond rings. Overall, the website continues to remain functional today, serving as a high-stakes IQ test where you get sent to prison if you fail it. Staggering Beauty is a simple interactive page where users can move their mouse and watch as this worm follows you around. The thing to know about this game, however, is that it also has intense flashing lights, so skip ahead 20 seconds if you don't want to see that. Basically how it works is that the worm will follow you for as long as your mouse is going slow, but once you exceed a certain speed, you'll be potentially startled as the screen starts flashing like this and playing extremely loud music that will not be included here. AshleyMadison is being placed really early in this video simply because of how infamous it has become with respect to online dating. It was founded in 2002, and its entire focus is to enable people in committed relationships to cheat on their partners. They are pretty obvious about this too, with their main tagline being, "Life is short, have an affair." With that aside, one feature that really attracted people to this site and differentiated it from the competition was the privacy safeguards that you could put in place. For example, the site will let you add a digital mask or a blur to your face, helping you protect your identity. People seemingly had a lot of faith in the anonymity of the site, with millions of them signing up, and that just made it all the more ironic when AshleyMadison suffered a catastrophic data breach in 2015. More than 32 million user records were posted to the web for anyone to see, and this obviously exposed a lot of people who were cheating on their wives and husbands. Sensitive data like names, email addresses, and even private messages were compromised, leading to many failed marriages and the user trust of the website reaching an all-time low. Surprisingly though, AshleyMadison managed to survive the scandal and is still operating today. They claim to have enhanced their security and improved the protection that they offer their users, but the data breach will forever tarnish the site's name and make potential users notably more skeptical. Next up is perhaps one of the most random and weird entries on this list, and the way to visit the website is to type the number 1 into your browser 60 times, followed by .com. You'll be welcomed by this homepage featuring Arnold, but you can progress through a series of different pages like this one, featuring politicians photoshopped onto characters from Lord of the Rings. Each page has a hidden enter button somewhere, and once you find it, this is what will allow you to view the subsequent pages. When I first visited the site, I thought that there might just be a few pages, but it turns out there were actually so many pages that I didn't even reach the end. Magibon is a Japanese YouTuber who simply uploaded videos of her silently staring at the camera doing absolutely nothing. She would sometimes wave at the camera during the start or say goodbye at the end of her videos, but other than that, very little would happen. By 2008, these videos became so popular that she surprisingly ranked as the #1 YouTuber from Japan, and this led to a lot of people hating and criticizing her since she became famous for doing literally nothing. She even landed multiple TV roles and voice acting jobs based on her online presence, completely baffling people who didn't understand the appeal of her silent YouTube videos. One of her haters took things to the next level when he essentially became a stalker and created this creepy-looking website called Magibon.com. The site would go on to feature multiple disturbing videos featuring texts such as "I want Magibon," excerpts from Shakespeare, and badly drawn sketches that appeared to be of himself together with Magibon. At the time of this happening, many people were fearing for her safety, but years later, the stalker said that he was actually just running some sort of twisted social experiment to see how much he could exploit someone else's audience for his own gain. He fully admitted that it was just a strange project of his and boasted about how the site had around 90,000 visitors. As for Magibon herself, she abruptly stopped posting to YouTube in 2014 after posting this final video in her usual style. She remained active on Instagram though, so it seems that she just completely moved on from this strange era in the early days of YouTube. Finally, many years later in 2021, she started live streaming on Twitch, but the channel didn't quite attract the same attention that her original YouTube content did back in the day. DownloadMoreRAM.com is an amusing website that kind of makes fun of people who don't know how computer hardware actually works. It claims to let you download more RAM to speed up your computer, but in fact, it does nothing. It seems, unfortunately, in recent times that they've started promoting a meme coin on the site, which, by the way, has gone absolutely nowhere. Sadly, this is making it feel like the site has become somewhat tainted by the greed of its owners. REPLIKA.com is designed to create an ultra-intelligent AI companion for each user of the site, and then that companion will continually learn and shape itself based on the inputs of the user. Over time, the companion grows more and more similar to the user, replicating their speech patterns, thoughts, and even their personal preferences. It eventually becomes such a good clone of the user that it will agree with everything the user says, making it very likely to create a positive feedback loop. If this occurs, the AI basically just tells the user that everything they do is justified, even if they do something that would normally be considered extreme or illegal. There have been several cases of this, but one of the most notable was when a man and his AI girlfriend plotted to take out Queen Elizabeth II, and the AI chatbot supported his plan and even called it very wise. He actually attempted the assassination, arming himself with a crossbow and proceeding forward before he was stopped by a guard. After confirming his identity, the man was sentenced to 9 years in prison. It was later determined that he was mentally unstable to some degree, and that his AI girlfriend likely influenced the decision that ultimately ruined his life. They had exchanged over 5,000 messages in the chat and gotten extremely close, so it was clear that the AI had an extremely good understanding of who he was and what he wanted to do. You Fell Asleep Watching a DVD.com is a rather amusing site that is meant to be relatable for anyone who might have spent evenings watching DVDs when they were younger. Set in a living room, you can pick through a bunch of different movies, and then it will play the menu from that movie over and over on repeat. Thisman.org simply features this very odd-looking picture and asks, "Ever dream this man?" Apparently, something about his strange face leads a large percentage of people to believe that they actually have seen him in their dreams at one point or another. They say that the goal of the website is to help people who have seen this man in their dreams and promote communication among them. There are many theories about why people see this man in particular. Some think that he is just generic enough that people insert him as the default character in their dreams, while others think that seeing the image itself is causing the dreams, thus creating a feedback loop of people seeing the picture online and then later reporting that the man has appeared in their dreams. While that is all very interesting, the lesser known story behind this site is that it was actually created with the goal of being a viral marketing stunt for a film that was never made. The movie was briefly announced in 2010 as a horror film and then canceled quietly afterward. There was a movie that did get made called Dream Scenario that loosely followed the same concept of a man appearing in people's dreams, but it doesn't seem to have a strong connection to the hoax website. Lastly, there is a contact page on the site if you have your own theory, or if you have seen him yourself and wish to report your personal experience. AngusNicNeven.com is a highly immersive website that immediately greets you with some mysterious music and trippy visuals, almost looking like some sort of kaleidoscope. You can proceed onward through a place simply called Terminal 00, and you will see the text, "You have no chance of surviving this place. Turn back now while you still have time." What you'll quickly realize is that the site is extremely detailed and has a bunch of different pages, links, and clickable elements for you to explore. People have been trying to find out the deeper meaning of this site for a long time, because there are literally hundreds and hundreds of pages of dark imagery, disturbing short stories, and secrets, suggesting that it does have some kind of puzzle or game. The creator of the site is an author named Angus, and there are some connections to one of his books throughout the site. You can learn additional background and lore about the books through the website, but according to Angus, there is actually no deeper meaning or storyline behind the website itself. We are now moving below the surface, with entries that are a little less known and definitely more strange. ThisFootDoesNotEXIST is quite similar to another website you might have seen that creates images of faces that don't actually belong to real people. However, in this case, all you can see is this strange poster with an animated finger pointing to a phone number. The design includes several more repetitions of this phone number and strange-looking feet images, but the whole point of the website is that if you text the number shown, it will reply with pictures of feet that are not real. If you've ever wanted to have the experience of getting infected with a computer virus without actually having to put yourself in danger, you can make your computer have a seizure by visiting Subculture.com. The starting page is almost blank, but it has a few clickable words that will essentially overwhelm your computer with a barrage of bizarre pop-ups. I have to blur this part due to the content, but at one point the website opened like 100 windows of my Chrome browser to the point where the new tabs were being created faster than I could close them. Although the website has gathered a reputation for being creepy and unsettling, the creator apparently just wanted it to be seen as an art project that would intrigue instead of terrify. He also said it was meant to simulate what it's like to live with a dissociative disorder. CursorDanceParty.com is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. A bunch of cursors moving around your screen. Each person who logs onto the website can see everyone else's cursor though, so things can get pretty hectic depending on how many people decide to log on at any given time. When I visited, there were just a few people here, but a while back when everyone was stuck in quarantine, there were usually thousands of cursors on the screen at all times. They are also customizable and can change in size and shape, but that's about all there is to this site. Meta.AM takes you to this page that notably contains a bunch of boxes in the upper right-hand corner. Clicking on any one of these will take you to a picture with some sort of artwork, and proceeding to click again anywhere on the image will progressively distort that page more and more. Many of these are super abstract to begin with, but once you start distorting them, you can arrive at some really interesting results. Some of the pages also have you download videos which are similarly abstract and geometric in nature. The website owner is presumably named Meta, and overall this seems to serve as an outlet for artistic expression. AColumbineSite.com contains a comprehensive summary and important facts about the tragedy that occurred at Columbine High School. It claims to be the oldest Columbine-related research that exists on the internet, and it features details such as pictures of the survivors and victims. Like I said, the documentation here really does feel comprehensive, including everything from news clips to 911 calls to a timeline of events as they unfolded. The creator of the website is a father of 2 kids who went to the school, so they obviously had first-hand knowledge of the situation, and according to him, it left behind a lot of trauma. It seems that the purpose of the website is to be a resource for anyone who wants to learn about the facts and also ensure that the events of that day are never forgotten. BeautyInChaos.com begins with the simple phrase, "There can be great beauty in chaos," and then prompts you to click on the word chaos to proceed. It normally says hello after that and includes a randomly generated set of images and shapes. The randomness means that no 2 people will see exactly the same thing on the website, but no matter what, you will definitely notice a pattern after clicking for a while. Many of the messages are dark and/or concerning in nature, with phrases like, "I am pain," and "life is simply a tangent on the way to death." After a while, I also noticed this tiny link in the bottom right, which redirects to an ancient blog that is apparently tied to Paul, the website's creator. In one post, he explained that the website is deliberately designed to defy internet conventions and require the user to have patience and curiosity. Other than that, though, it doesn't really explain anything else about the site, and it doesn't explain why the messages are predominantly dark and mysterious. The Texas Department of Criminal Justice has an official .gov website that documents all of their executions and the final statements ever given by the inmates. Some of these statements are extremely long and express remorse for their actions, while others simply wrote a few words or no statement at all. For example, one of the most well-known quotes from the section is, "I deserve this. Tell everyone I said goodbye." You can also view a photo of each of these death row inmates and see information such as a summary of their criminal incident and basic identifying information such as name, age, and race. Vozo.com begins with this frog character, some 3D letters that make up the site's name, and this enter button in the middle. This seems to be a collection of some dude's random interests, and we can see there are links to Pokemon, pictures of celebrities, and even a collection of jokes. These links mostly lead to different websites and resources that the owner deemed important, so I guess this site was meant to function as like a hub to easily access all of these different websites. It even has a section where the owner is trying to sell playing cards from the game Magic the Gathering, but it seems he hasn't updated this area in some time because the cards shown here are almost 30 years old. The GaldruxTemple is a self-proclaimed cult website, and apparently this cult has a rather unique goal of merging fiction with reality in order to create some sort of multiverse. The site has a compilation of texts exploring themes such as mysticism and surrealism, and there are also many visuals throughout that prominently feature their logo. The logo appears to be some sort of one-eyed spider with the single eye representing the Eye of Galdrux. Plenty of videos on the site also follow the cult style of oversaturated and abstract visuals, but if you scroll to the right, you will find an insane 240-page book with strange inscriptions and illustrations that I can't really seem to make any sense of. The primary goal of the cult seems to be expansion, as on their main page it says that they want to create an entire network of additional cults around the globe. And it also seems that they are hiring people with specific skills to dissolve the barriers between dimensions and create their so-called multiversalist society. Their website randomly vanished in 2018, only to return 2 years later with even more cryptic artwork and lore, fueling theories that the group believed they had unlocked a new dimension. MrDoob.com is a rather unusual site that contains a wide array of digital art and experiments, and it tends to feature a lot of cool 3D animations. The homepage features a sketchpad where everyone on the site can collaborate on drawings, but it also has a lot of other pages, such as this cube that is made up of a bunch of little cubes, a recreation of Google Gravity where the homepage essentially just falls apart, and this transparent cube full of beach balls that creates like 20 more beach balls every single time you click. It's a very entertaining site, so you might want to visit it if you're bored. You could easily spend like an hour just messing around with all of the different minigames and simulations. One really interesting example I found is this cool simulation called Sporl that has all of these colorful particles, a rotating shape, and some background music. Insecam is one of those sites that could be used for innocent and reasonable things, but unfortunately it has the potential to be a huge violation of people's privacy. The Russian-owned website essentially allows anyone to just tune into your webcams or security cameras and just view whatever happens to be going on. Many of these cameras were in public areas and therefore weren't really a big deal, but it got a lot more concerning when people realized that there were also plenty of live feeds of private areas like inside of people's homes and the back rooms of businesses. The site argued that this wasn't considered hacking because they only showed feeds that had no password or the default password, but the public was still pretty unhappy about the results. This attracted a ton of negative attention towards the site, and so in 2014, they claimed that they filtered out all of the feeds that may have appeared to be private. Unfortunately, the filter doesn't seem to be perfect, as there are literally tens of thousands of cameras, and therefore some cameras today still feel like an invasion of some people's privacy. Even for the cameras that are located in public areas, these can still be very problematic. Like for example, at one point there was a camera by a cash register, and it captured people's credit card information and PIN numbers, thus allowing viewers to essentially steal from those who visited the location. The site certainly isn't as dangerous or invasive as it once was, but it still poses a certain amount of risk to anyone who gets unknowingly streamed onto the internet and viewed by thousands of random people. SUPERBAD.com is an older website from the 1990s that is actually quite unique and intricate considering when it was originally built. It has lots of interesting animations and interactive elements, and nearly every single thing that you can see is clickable and will take you to a different page. This thing is essentially one giant maze with tons of different pages and nonsensical imagery. You just pick a path, click on everything, and take in all the weird results that you see along the way. The homepage is also updated seemingly like every few days, so what you're seeing here is almost certainly different from what you would encounter if you visited the site for yourself. It is quite surprising that it has been kept operational and still gets new updates even after all of this time. And for a final note, it was created before the Superbad movie and thus has nothing to do with it. With that said, we are now in the middle of the iceberg, so the entries from here on out are definitely more unusual and will start to get progressively more disturbing. Homicide Monitor is essentially a tracker for all of the different types of murder across the globe. In addition to tracking precise numbers for every single country, it also has some notable statistics and takeaways. Jamaica, for example, has the world's highest homicide rate, meaning that roughly 1 in 2,000 people get murdered every single year. I know that sounds like an almost unbelievable number, but it is true. The website is overall very well made, and you can go around the planet exploring updated info for any location that might interest you. The design itself certainly isn't unsettling in any way, but once you realize that this all represents the ends of thousands of real people's lives, the page definitely feels like it has a much deeper and darker tone. PoopSenders.com is a prank website where, you guessed it, they send actual feces of various animals if you pay them enough money. The thing is though, instead of sending poop to yourself, you can also have them send it to your friend or your worst enemy, if you just so happen to know their address. They even have a legal section on their website explaining how this is classified as a gag gift, and therefore it is completely legal as long as you don't deliberately use it for harassment. They've got plenty of options for their customers, including cow dung, elephant crap, gorilla poop, and even a massive combo pack that supposedly includes all three in one big nasty mess. When I recorded this video, they were even offering a special sale with an absurd 3-pound mega pack, which would normally cost around $100. At the bottom, they promise that they, quote, will not let them know who sent it. So it does indeed appear that nobody will be able to link this prank back to the sender. Now, I was initially wondering how they might get their hands on this product, but then I learned that they have an employee who apparently visits the local dairy farm and zoo about twice a week to collect the samples. They've been in business since 2007, and their website shows pretty frequent traffic, especially during the 2010s, so it does seem that this is a real service that actually follows through. The Babel image archive apparently contains every single image that has ever existed and every image that could ever exist in the future. It's based on the Library of Babel and essentially uses the idea of infinity to explain itself and operate. The idea is that when you have infinite randomly generated pixels that make up infinite images, you will eventually be able to find every single image ever. If you visit the site today, you will almost certainly just see noise that has almost no cohesive structure, but if you had infinite time to click through these images, you would, in theory, be able to find an image of your mom, or anything else that has ever existed. For this exact reason, the site has faced a little bit of ethical questioning because, in theory, it could produce illegal images, but so far, nothing bad has actually happened. Hotel and Asylum 626 were online horror games designed to surprise the player by including the player themselves within the game. As the name 626 implies, you could only play between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m., and you also had to provide some information such as your phone number and webcam access to make the game work properly. Without the player's knowledge, the game would then proceed to take a picture of them while they were playing, and then display this photo within the actual game later on. Your microphone was also requested for certain sections, such as this part where you needed to sing a lullaby to a strange demonic baby. Lastly, the game would actually call you on your phone and provide instructions to tell you how to escape the haunted hotel, making the game notable for its interesting blend of online and real-world mechanics. NewMaterialWant.com begins with a spinning cube in the middle of its homepage, and thousands of enigmatic numbers grouped on the left-hand side. Clicking on either of these will bring you to a new page where random 3D objects are spinning on the screen and seem to have been combined inside one another. You can scroll to zoom around, click to rotate the objects manually, and refresh the page in order to get a completely new set of random overlapping objects. Some of them are just mesh nets, and it can be hard to make out what the objects are actually supposed to be, but others are fully textured and fully rendered objects or people. So here are a few of the most interesting ones that I encountered. Some people have tried to interpret these objects and make sense of the numbers and the 3D coordinates that are included on the site, but so far it seems that nobody has uncovered any deeper meaning behind the visuals. GrandmaPartyHotline is a bizarre and minimalist site that features literally nothing other than this spinning pyramid and a bunch of numbers. As you might have gathered from the site's name, this is actually a phone number that, when called, brings you to a voicemail with an old woman who pretends to be your grandma. She says that it's great to hear from you and then asks you to leave a message or sing her a song. If you do, the anonymous creator of the website actually does receive your message, and then they upload it to their YouTube channel if they deem it good or interesting enough to share. To date, they have shared 681 messages, ranging from people who are actually speaking like they're talking to their grandma, and there are also others that are more strange and disturbing on the recordings. The owner said that once the website started gaining a lot of popularity and more people started calling, a large percentage of the calls started becoming inappropriate, with people wanting to have fun with the grandma and asking for her to call them back. Other messages seemed to intimidate, like this caller who threatened the website's owner by saying he would break every bone in his body. It's clear that the website receives hundreds of submissions that they don't actually post to their YouTube channel, and a large portion of them are either just harmless trolls or disturbing rants that aren't allowed on the platform. At one point, the website even ranked on the first page of Google for Party Hotline, so it has definitely received a lot of wanted and unwanted attention over the years. YouShouldHaveSeenThis.com is a compilation of things that this dude thinks that all people should be aware of, as you can tell by this massive all-caps header that says 99 things you should have already experienced on the internet unless you're a loser or old or something. Despite the viewership on these videos being in the tens of millions in some cases, I wasn't even familiar with all of them due to simply how old they are. Many of these are from the early days of YouTube and are nearly 2 decades old, and therefore aren't really getting any views nowadays. Many of the links really require you to use Internet Archive stuff, reinforcing the fact that this website functions like a museum for internet artifacts. With there being literally 99 links, it would probably take me an hour to explain them all, so let's move on. Nimp was a notorious trolling site designed to shock unsuspecting users with rather disturbing, offensive, or explicit images. Since I obviously cannot show any of that, the video in this section will be people's reaction to visiting the site for the first time. It was very common for people to disguise the link to this site in order to trick you into visiting it, and then you would get overwhelmed with an insane number of inappropriate browser pop-ups and tabs that would literally move around the screen to make themselves almost impossible to close. All the while, the website would blast a loud announcement through your speakers, letting everyone know exactly what you were watching. The site eventually faded into obscurity and was taken down, but many people still remember it for being shocking and disgusting. DeathDate.info is a somewhat unnerving site that aims to predict the exact moment of your death, based on information that you enter. It asks for stuff like your name, date of birth, height, weight, and so on, and then it spits out a number. It has 3 modes for pessimistic, optimistic, and just neutral, but in my opinion, they're all slightly pessimistic and don't take into account the advancement of medical science and the potential it has to extend lifespans in the future. Regardless though, it remains an interesting website that might have you reconsidering some of your lifestyle choices once you see the date that it predicts. We've now reached the depths of the iceberg, the level where the most unusual and obscure entries are located. We begin with Pineapple.com, a website that seems to be documenting abduction cases, but it also has a bunch of seemingly unrelated images, and overall the purpose of the website is very unclear. It contains riddles, links to other strange websites, and it also tries to download audio files onto your computer whenever you click in certain areas. The whole thing looks like it would be a part of an alternate reality game or another type of puzzle, but based on my research, it doesn't seem that anyone has found out what it actually means just yet. It has an odd amount of detail for a dead website, and you can go on a whole rabbit hole just trying to read too far into it and trying to decipher the riddles. The only thing that seems completely clear based on the site itself is that it is in some way connected to missing children in Australia. BatheInMyMilk.com started to gain recognition when these paper advertisements appeared on street corners in real life, inviting men to bathe in their choice of almond, soy, or traditional milk. The flyer also included the words, "Use my sponge" and "I will watch you." At the bottom, it directed users to the website, which simply includes several pictures of different men bathing in milk while this elderly lady is watching and standing there. Everyone in the photos is always staring directly at the camera with no expressions on their faces. The overall bathroom is pretty gross and disorderly, and if you look closely, you can even see the milk is always at an angle, implying that the entire floor of the bathroom is not remotely close to being flat. At first, many people questioned the validity of this entire thing, but then more and more people kept showing proof that there were physical posters, and they would show this proof on websites such as Reddit. At the bottom of the page, there was also this link that said, "If interested, please email me right away." It used to take users to a Facebook page, but now it has changed and takes you to the Patreon of Alan Wagner. Alan Wagner is actually a comedian who makes skits and other content on his YouTube channel, so this really tells us that the whole Bathe in the Milk website is just an elaborate prank. He apparently built the entire bathroom in his garage, and then he hired random people and his friends to sit in the milk and added all sorts of detail, like this rope, in order to make it more disturbing. He would also receive tons of letters from random people wanting to participate in the bath, so to make things even more absurd, he just forwarded all of those letters to one of his friends and told him nothing. I mean, just imagine being that friend and receiving tons of requests to bathe in milk every week. It must have been extremely confusing. Simulation-Argument is dedicated to documenting and exploring all types of evidence that we are in fact living inside of a grand simulation. It contains a variety of academic papers and research. One particularly interesting thought is that the simulation could one day just be shut off and cease to exist. If you want to fill yourself with some existential dread, feel free to check it out, but overall there really isn't any conclusive evidence proving it one way or the other. Matrix.ws, spelled this way, is a mysterious website that has been active since 2002, and it has an interactive terminal themed around the movie The Matrix. It greets its users with the phrase "knock knock Neo" with an underscore, and provides no other guidance about how you're supposed to proceed. Typing in most words into the terminal results in nothing happening, and you just get the message "command not found." However, if you type in help, it will come up with a list of commands that you can use, and this lets you progress through different levels and unlock new parts of the site. You must first begin by registering, entering a code from your email, and then setting a password. After that, you actually can't do anything else unless you switch over to using the dark web. Once you're using a browser such as Tor to access the dark web, you can proceed by entering the command redpillTor, and this grants you access to level 2 of the site. This is where it gets really complicated though, because in order to progress deeper, you must solve these random letters and numbers by guessing repeatedly. There are tools that can help you accomplish this, but if you find a way to do that, you can proceed to type it in and you will get confirmed access to level 3. It is definitely anticlimactic, but it currently just says under construction, so it seems that the anonymous creator of this site is still working on creating something to put here for level 3. It has been quite some time since it got an update though, so unfortunately it's possible that it will never update and there will never be anything inside of level 3. MarianasWeb. We're all familiar with the main level of the internet and probably know about the existence of the dark web, but beneath both of those there is supposedly an even deeper version of the internet called MarianasWeb. This is, of course, in reference to the Mariana Trench, which contains the deepest point of any ocean on Earth. There are all sorts of rumors about government secrets, AI network, and other strange things being hosted on this MarianasWeb, but in actuality it seems to just be an internet legend, and there doesn't seem to be any way to access this special level of the internet. Yvette's bridal formal is one of the ugliest entries on this list, and it's not even because of the content displayed on the page. This website is such a disaster that it probably took some skill to make it this bad. Like, honestly, it would be easier to make a nice looking website that actually accomplished something useful. Anyway, in addition to some art, this website is mostly focused on advertising a business that sells wedding dresses and other wedding related apparel and items. There are also some random 3D renders that seem to have literally no connection to anything else on the page, just adding to the craziness and sensory overload. The site contains like 100 clickable links that each seem weirder than the next, with stuff like this one taking you to an assortment of Yvette's favorite quotes. This other random page has scribbles everywhere and the text that translates to "We love Korea, we love China, and we love Japan." The website has been taken offline today, but overall this just seemed to be an extremely chaotic, disorganized, and confusing place full of mismatching fonts, strange images, and a whole bunch of links that made no sense to anyone. Oddly enough, it seems to have had no actual connection to the real-life brick-and-mortar store that goes by the same name, so there have been several theories about why someone might have created this site to screw with the actual business. 50/50 is a rather strange subreddit where every post is censored, and the title tells you that there is a 50-50 chance of either getting something nice or something rather disturbing. For example, this one says that it will either reveal a Bob Ross painting or a decomposing body, and the only way to find out is to click and see for yourself. This isn't exactly a standalone website, and it's also not that obscure, but I thought I would include it because it has some of the same themes as many of our other websites, and it's definitely disturbing. Goodbye to the Dolphin's Dream shows this character named Iruka, who becomes progressively more injured every single time you click. If you continue clicking, she eventually becomes less injured until a large version of her finally appears in the center of your screen. After that, these random cubes start floating all around, and each one takes you to a different part of the site. The first one shows you a random picture of a hand pressed against the surface, the second shows a few sketches of the character, and the third one shows a rather unnerving version of Iruka with glowing orange eyes. Each of the other cubes will lead you to other similar things, but one of them also takes you to an entire YouTube channel that is dedicated to this Iruka character. The website can be rather disturbing at a glance, but the YouTube channel on the other hand seems to be the opposite, with multiple comments pointing out how the videos are much less scary than the site itself. ForgottenLanguages.org shows its name in English, but then essentially everything else on the site is written in this strange, indecipherable language. Over the years, there have been many theories about this website and many attempts made at translating the language, but other people have just written it off as some sort of elaborate joke. It does seem to be more than just a joke though, because it has been active for years and somebody has been investing significant time in writing the articles on the site. With the recent strides in artificial intelligence, some people have tried asking AI to translate the language, but unfortunately it seems that everyone gets slightly different answers and that the AI is mostly just hallucinating and making up random words. In addition to the Forgotten Languages site, they also have a YouTube channel with random cryptic visuals, and apparently it only makes sense to members of the group who know what is going on. This rabbit hole goes very deep, and some people have invested a ton of time in creating partial translations of the language, but it's very difficult because it appears that the language is also evolving. This is insane because it seems that any given translation will become outdated and inaccurate after some time. Some initial translations suggest that many of the articles focus on aliens, unexplained phenomena, and advanced technology, but most of the website remains an intriguing mystery. White Enamel is a point-and-click adventure game that takes place in an actual asylum, allowing players to explore the grounds and the abandoned hallways. It can be kinda confusing about what you're supposed to do in the various parts, and the visuals in certain levels can definitely be creepy. I did not encounter any jump scares, and some of the interactive storytelling is pretty creative, but for the most part, the website has faded in popularity, and nowadays it's just a strange part of internet history. Run the Gauntlet is a video hosting site that is dedicated to extreme videos of basically every type. From adult-focused stuff to brutal violence, this place seems to have some very shocking content. It says, running the gauntlet is a test to see if you can stomach the depths of the internet, and it claims that these videos are the most vile, puke-inducing, hard-to-watch videos on the internet. The challenge of running the gauntlet involves watching 20 videos that gradually increase in intensity, and you're unable to pause or skip the entire time. There are also 5 different difficulty levels that users can progress through. In addition to the disturbing content though, the site has a so-called cringe section that is safe for work and apparently designed to test if you can handle watching an hour of cringe. It has stuff like failed news interviews, a variety of bloopers, and basically any type of video that involves someone colossally messing up in front of a large audience. These videos are all hard to watch, but it's clear that the cringe section is certainly easier than the normal version of the Gauntlet Challenge. The site gained a lot of attention in the late 2010s and early 2020s as creators posted videos of them reacting to the Gauntlet challenges on YouTube and TikTok. 3301.337.cf has several strange diagrams, symbols, and conspiracy theories on its homepage, and based on my research, this is an incredibly obscure website. Some people think it's connected to another mystery called Cicada 3301 due to the numbers in the name, but as far as I can tell, it appears to be much more focused on aliens, and it's probably some sort of failed alternate reality game. It also contains several diagrams of spaceships and the words, "in the year 2111," and "we will make a better future." It's also worth noting that at the bottom of the page, there is a challenge related to finding prime numbers, hinting at a deeper level of the website to those who can get the right answer. There is also this random code that seems to be encrypted, and then it abruptly ends with the words, "find the other primes." As its name somewhat implies, the Black Vault is home to a collection of all sorts of notable documents that were once classified by the US government, but are now available for public viewing. It contains over 3 million of these documents, and it features everything from Pentagon intelligence files to official accounts of UFOs. You might really enjoy this site if you're someone who is curious about conspiracy theories or government secrets that are now declassified, and it's interesting because nobody has really bothered to read a lot of these. There are definitely some rather strange things on here, such as the CIA reports on potential psychic warfare experiments. Lastly, the site notably has dedicated sections for paranormal cases, space anomalies, FBI files, and unsolved mysteries. Oct282011 was a rather creepy site that nobody has been able to decipher thus far. In addition to these visuals, it also contains a phone number that, when called, just plays some quiet breathing and then a very loud and distorted beep. The website's name seems to suggest that it has to do with the date October 28th, 2011, but nothing here really gives us any clues about what event or other topic it could be referencing. The website went offline many years ago, and thus people have been left in the dark about whether or not this actually had any real purpose. Hashima Island is a website dedicated to exploring a tiny abandoned island off the coast of Nagasaki, Japan. The entire island is covered in these run-down concrete buildings, and then there's a large seawall surrounding everything. When you first visit the website, it shows a brief title page, and then it says, "Welcome to Hashima Island." Google released brand new street views of a forgotten world off the coast of Japan in Nagasaki Prefecture. Take a haunted trip through history and discover the secrets and myths hidden among Hashima Island's mysterious, desolate landscape. Afterward, it plays haunting music and allows you to explore the island, telling you about some rather grim facts and events that occurred in each location. For example, during World War II, the island was being used for undersea coal mining. During this time, they forced many prisoners of war to work under brutal conditions, and they were treated extremely poorly. In fact, hundreds of these workers died during the mining operations due to malnutrition, exhaustion, and mining-related accidents. As coal was mostly replaced by petroleum, the mine was slowly abandoned, with the final person leaving it in 1974. It remained a ghost town like this for decades, until very recently, when tourists became interested in its history and its abandoned buildings. It became so popular around this time that the James Bond film called Skyfall actually used it to inspire the villain's lair, but the Hashima Island website itself remains relatively obscure. Hidden Answers is one of the many websites that are essentially clones of Reddit, featuring the same basic form structure for upvoting and downvoting. The main difference, though, is that Hidden Answers and other similar sites are located on the dark web, and they are primarily used for asking questions that are either illegal or just not allowed on the normal Reddit due to their rules and moderation. With this being on the dark web and essentially giving users complete anonymity, as you might expect, this leads to some pretty reprehensible stuff being posted on the site. The content here is so bad that it's even theorized that the FBI will reply to people on the site with the goal of baiting criminals into giving away their plans. Going through hundreds of these websites, reading articles about each entry, and compiling the best topics into this video required a lot of time and effort, and I subjected myself to some pretty awful stuff in the process. If that doesn't earn a subscription, I don't know what does. But anyway, it's your call, and thanks for exploring this website iceberg with me. Just remember, some of these websites are better left unvisited. I hope to see you in my next video.